Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Dinora Gonzalez, and I am the project manager for the Dreamcatcher program. I want to thank you all for being here today and taking the time to join us in another webinar. The Freeport McMoran Foundation has created the Project Dreamcatcher in partnership with Thunderbird for Good. Project Dreamcatcher is a free business program for Native American women entrepreneurs. We host them on campus, but unfortunately, due to the crisis that we're living on, we're not able to give them the classes that we do on campus. So I want to thank you all for being here today, and we're trying to pivot, doing everything online. And I'm going to introduce my speakers today. Please welcome Ray T Daw. He's a Navajo veteran whose career has been in behavioral health. Ray has been 35 years doing work in the Navajo Nation for nonprofits and most recently in Alaska. He works in behavioral health. He has been developing Native trauma appropriate approaches and healing and effective. So all that has to do with tribal behavioral health prevention, intervention, and treatment services. Thank you, Ray, for being here today. And he's gonna be doing the blessing today. Welcome.
Thank you for the very good introduction. And it's a pleasure to meet everyone that's here with us this afternoon. I'm looking forward to a real informative and productive time with you all. So I'll do the blessing in Navajo. That's my language, and also in our traditional way, because I practice the Navajo traditional way, we have a process for doing this. Zadastan twistan chahas heel khayot khar. Hashchiyat here. Natanska is key natanso date. Hadatin is key. Tani date. Sahna reish key because they could all the end in there. Kitchen. So there's an ishlad or let the quick. He hizani dan lini, kedan lini, kidnatan lini quick. Nan tiendohan and ya qua. Aslahze the kudo. Epa he kodoi jenugo geta I lado lesson song kodo pa so doesn't has zito le to pa kwa yat eho kodo is ta halon do le to nasko benan shida yo le to ina da yo le nasko yat eho eta I lado lesson song just to quit the internet and see kwa alen hin hizak ado hin not ake nasko te ni khato beta ni at the internet he could all take yat could all the net on it glido list, it's a case of toilet list or a jado dance toilet list again. He could all general quan if that we none in Yachin that lini, so can not kid that lini. Adults are Nasi could at least or Nasco done it edo list again that way. It was a Nasco de ne castle list or Nasco daikini kind of list or couldn't go on lini. Ita Eliado list or can take case or maybe that Eliado list quite the end could it's a genre list or Kede genre list or Yahoo genre list or Keho genre list or in Ask genre list or Keza genre list the end and Kudo. So what I asked for in the blessing and naming the holy people and the Creator is for us to have a good learning session and a good opportunity for us to interact with each other and be with each other. And that we take what we hear and what we learn into our hearts, into our minds with clarity. And that we take what we pick up this way into our work, into our lives, and we take it to our to our families, our spouses or spouse, and our children, our grandchildren, and that we move ahead with life with beauty and harmony ahead of us, behind us, and beauty and harmony beneath us, above us, or all around us, and beauty and harmony coming from our lips and our mouth. That everything will be beautiful because we're sacred people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray. That was great. Now I want to welcome Joy. Joy Lubeck. She is a graduate from Thunderbird. She is also a certified present-based coach. She's been working with a lot of executives. She has a great experience in leadership coach. She's a team facilitator. She's a chain leader and a people connector. So please, if you can start the session, Joy.
Thank you so much. And Ray, thank you. That was beautiful.
Mm.
And I hope that that helps us come into community today, because today is all around this community and being there for one another, especially in such uncertain times. And as I talked to Dinora, we reflected on what would be helpful. And you've had a lot of webinars on how to support your businesses and the doing aspect of what needs to be done. And that's very important. And yet today is going to be a little bit about the being side of who we are. And when I thought about what this title should be, in terms of uncertainty and volatility and complexity, we want to be embracing some of this. That's an ideal state. And yet things are moving faster and faster and getting worse and worse and better all at the same time. And so how do we find a way to be centered, to be grounded, to know ourselves so well and really build what I will call the resilience muscle, the self-awareness muscle and the resilience muscle, because these two together are powerful. And it will impact the doing side of everything that you do, that you are. So with that, let's just start. And I encourage, if you want to come, let me see your beautiful faces. If it's not comfortable, then of course, don't worry. This will be somewhat interactive. And if that works, we're going to start with something just at the top. In chat, I invite each of you to just write one word. When you come into this session today, what is your mood? What is the mood check?
Okay.
And let's just see what comes up, Dinara.
Let's see.
And don't be shy.
Because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat.
Okay, let me see. It's starting. Some brave soul. Happy. What else? I love it. Anybody else? Relaxed. Intrigued. I love that one. Others? Loved. Empowered, anxious. Any more?
I think
That might be it. So in this session that we're going to have today, and maybe let's go to the next screen, I'll just give you an overview of what our opportunity is today. So we're going to talk a little bit about this mood check. What zone are you in? And we'll get to that in a moment. And this whole session is around the journey of developing ourselves and really understanding that it has to start with self, that we can't lead or influence or impact our work as well as we could if we're not grounded and centered and aware of who we are. So this is all the inner work, not the outer work of loans and lending and all of this, and will my business survive, but rather, how can I embrace the uncertainty and be transformational along the way? We'll talk a little bit about self-awareness. We'll talk a little bit about our identity, our ego, and also how we could perhaps create new habits that serve us and others in better ways, and how you might hold yourself accountable. And then we'll talk about resilience. What is it? Why is it important? How can we develop it? And then as we close, how do we find our own way? What is your purpose in life? And what is your next small step you could take from today? Thank you. Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. All right. Oh, the one before. There. No, this one right after. There we go. No, it was the moods. Is it not paying attention to you?
No.
There. Nope, next one.
That one. Next one. It's just not working. That one.
There we go. Thank you. So a lot of my coaching is done in presence-based coaching, and we really talk about the psychology, the neurobiology, how we're wired. And I thought it'd be interesting, especially with the moods, to really see where you are, what zone you're in, as it correlates to empowered, anxious, loved, intrigued, relaxed, happy. So the red zone is used to describe a very heightened state of alertness and intense emotion. And a person may be elated or experiencing anger, fear, frustration in the red zone. The yellow zone is all used to describe a heightened state of alertness and elevated emotions. However, one has more control in this yellow zone, so not as heightened as red. And in the green zone, it's used to describe a calm state of alertness. Someone here may be happy, focused, content. I might use the word centered or grounded. And finally, the blue zone, which is used to describe a lower state of alertness, down feeling, sad, maybe even depressed. So reflect on your mood word, and then just make a note for yourself. What zone are you operating in right now? Okay, next.
It's not cooperating with me.
There you go. Thank you. Breathe. Everybody breathe. So the journey starts with self. And the fact that you're here today is already modeling a certain type of character of an individual who really wants to be open, curious, maybe even vulnerable, compassionate, stepping into their authentic self to really understand how they could build that resilience in these difficult times. That we may not have to come from fear, that maybe we can come from positivity and hope. So this is my invitation to really be with us today in self-exploration. Okay. So I changed this to be both life and leadership success. In other presentations, I'm working with leaders in organizations and they're all around this leadership success. And the more I do my work, the more I realize that we're human beings, whether we're at work or home or with family or in other contexts. And so for me, this is whole life. And that there is a leadership aspect that we bring. But if we could know more about ourselves, if we could be curious, even more curious about who we are, how we affect others, then that really could help build happier, and more fulfilling lives. Self-awareness, it's a biggie. Next one. So this is just a note that I found in my coach education that's interesting, and maybe you've seen this picture before. But if you imagine that 95% of our brain activity is beyond our conscious awareness, that in itself should say something about the opportunity for growth and development and self-awareness, because we're not even conscious of more than 95%, just this small 5%. So there's work to do, always. And mastery has no distance. Next. So this other thought that I learned was we are hardwired from birth. Even before birth, we're hardwired. We are predisposed to certain habits that we've built. And in fact, we are our habits. These habits are stored in our bodies, in our physical shape, in our thought patterns, in our default behaviors, and responses to life events. If we practice defeatism and powerlessness, that will become habituated as a habit in us to the extent that we don't even see options that are available. On the other hand, we can identify and practice that which builds self-generation, resilience, creativity, and resourcefulness. So practices through repetition literally build a new body. Over time, these practices build our shape and establish new neural pathways in our brain that we directly experience as new ways of thinking, new possibilities for action, and increased energy and aliveness. Think about that for one moment. We can unwire and rewire. Interesting. Next. So there's a quote by Marshall Goldsmith, who's a very well-known coach, and I use it a lot with my leaders. What got you here isn't going to get you there. And that is true. There are habits that no longer serve us or others. And we today have an opportunity to consider what that is. What our habits are that are getting in our way that still serve us. Thank you. Next one. So I would ask, I hope everyone has pencil and paper or a computer or whatever. Don't go too far away from me. But just, in fact, if you've got pencil and paper or pen, that was ideal because the physicality of journaling is very important. But this exercise seems silly, but it changed my life. And I'm inviting you into it as a shortened version because we can't get into breakouts and things like that today. It could be great work for you to pick up an accountability partner and go through this exercise once you reflected on it. But I'd like us to take a little time, just each of us right now, and I'll be the timer on this. And let's just start with the first one. Spend some time reflecting about the following question. Who are you? Who are you? List 4 or 5 positive adjectives that you're proud of about yourself that you think describe who you are. Think of it as a short description of your identity. Just 4 or 5, real quick. Don't hold it lightly. Don't get crazy on me. Just put something on there. And we'll come back to this in a little bit. Another 30 seconds. Hopefully I'm not rushing you.
I got mine already.
I saw. Okay. I don't want to rush, but let's move to the next question. Now, describe something that you've done recently, consciously or not, that was designed to get recognition from others for these same qualities. What habits of yours can you identify that serve to protect and build that identity? So now that you have those 4 or 5 positive descriptions, think about how you either consciously or not build your identity around those. We'll take another minute or so.
Okay.
Everybody ready for the next question? The final question. Now choose one of your positive qualities and consider how it limits you. How does your drive to reinforce this trait eliminate other ways of responding? What possibilities might open up if you didn't have to keep building that particular aspect of your identity? This one takes a little more reflection. And you have a minute. Dinora, you're my guide. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm almost done. It's just the last one is hard. It's a hard question.
I never said this was going to be easy.
I think that probably everybody got it now. If you want to move.
So no, I want to stay here for a moment, and I wonder if someone would like to come off mute and explain what you felt. And I will start by giving you an example, just so that you have a sense of how it affected me. So I was in my coach education training, and my teacher gave us this, and we were in teams of about 4 or 5, and this works great in a team. And what happened was, the last one came, the last question, and he said, okay, and you have 4 minutes. And all of a sudden, I was being timed. And so one of my traits is efficiency, right? And it was like, let's go, let's get this thing done. And then I'm bringing other people around me because I'm an extrovert, and come on, let's go. And then we debriefed. And what I found out was that I had an opportunity to not be that extrovert, to hold space for others, and to allow others to come into the space. And so what happened is we debriefed, and this young woman, young, like in her 20s, said, well, I defer to you, you're the oldest, and you were wiser. And then there was another man who refers to himself as a grumpy Buddhist, and he said, oh, the teacher said 4 minutes, and I said, forget it. And then the woman next to me said, well, I was with you, let's get it done. So how many people here resonate with that story or are willing to share their own story around this exercise today?
Who wants to share? Let me just call someone. Let's see. Bridget, do you want to share? I don't know if she's here.
I am here. I think I'm not quite done processing, but I think that just that term that you said, happy Buddhist, is there's a lot of irony in that, and you know, there's 2 things to this: that we can't always be the things that we need to be when we should, and it takes a lot of work to do it, because some of the adjectives that I think, you know, the one term that I have focused on is being serious, and sometimes being serious gets in the way of a lot of things, even though I might be caring. But sometimes it's really hard to overcome the serious aspect of it and not allow the your emotional piece to interfere. I'm very heavy set on boundaries, and so there's a lot that I'm still thinking about. So and I'm the one that wrote down anxious, so this is just adding to it. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
I'm just kidding.
This really, thank you for sharing. And, may I just say that there is no right or wrong or good or bad here. This is really about where you are in this space right now and being able to self-observe internally. Imagine, if you will, all of you for one moment, that you're at a balcony 30,000 feet up and you're looking down on yourself in this moment with me, with one another. Bridget, with you and me in this conversation. There is no right or wrong or good or bad, but the opportunity, and you said it, is we get to choose our setting. We have an opportunity to A, self-observe and be self-aware, and then B, really understand what is it that is being called upon us in this very moment. And can we pivot? Can we be adaptive and pivot into what is being called upon us in this moment? So if you go back, so thank you. Is there anyone else before we go back to the slides that would like to share?
Somebody wrote like positive, I think is Deb. Would you like to share, Deb? I don't know. Yeah, she's right here. Let me unmute you. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just trying to pay for some mail stuff. But yeah, I did write positive. So some of the attributes, adjectives, and positive side are active, energetic. I didn't get a chance to write it down.
That's okay, but although let's take positive for a moment. Let's take the fact that positivity is a strength of yours and it's your identity. What could that ever get in your way that you be too positive?
Oh yeah, I think that being positive and a go-getter, sometimes some of those goals that I do set do get unmet, and I fall short, or the team falls short. But I also, look at it as a learning experience. Whether that's whatever I'm doing, whatever activity, whether it's teaching a team or helping someone. For instance, with my mom's business right now, she's shut down, but we're trying to look at alternative ways to get her going again with her business. And although she's a little bit older, as far as like elderly, she does have some positive traits to get her working again. So, and sometimes, that positivity, it does rub off on other people, and being able to get them excited, and then I poop out. I get tired and then I sleep for a week. So my energy is high, then I have to recharge and then go back into my shell and come out later.
Thank you for sharing. May I just say that in my profession, and Ray, maybe you feel this way too, when you're in service of others, then one of the biggest things we must do is put our own oxygen masks on first. And that positivity, and thank you for sharing, could get in your way because then you're depleted at the end. And so what is it that you might do, and this is just an idea, to modulate that identity of positivity in a way that could give you a little bit more sustainability? Just an idea. Let's go back to our slides. Thank you for sharing, you guys.
Okay.
You sort of get the idea, though. Our strengths overused become our opportunities for growth. And so where are we overusing those strengths? Yeah, next slide.
Okay.
So this I love. And my coach at the end of my coach education gave me, it looks it looks not quite like this, but just pretend, you know, you could go from low to high, and that you'd have the low setting, medium, and high, and maybe even calibrations in between. If we could create enough space, and when I say that, I mean inside of us, not just in our head, but in our body, to better understand what is needed in this moment, to begin that self-observation, and then decide, do we act on something right now? In my example, I shouldn't have acted at all. I should have given space to others, and boy, did I learn that. Should we sense in for more information, get curious about what else is there, or take no action, or perhaps something else? Next slide. So one of my all-time favorite quotes by Viktor Frankl, who was an Austrian physicist and philosopher. He wrote The Meaning of Life, an amazing book. And he has a quote that it's in my heart every day. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So if you take the example of being too out there, as I was, and not self-aware and understanding that I might have been turning others off and not even inviting them into the learning process, had I known that, I could have chosen something different. And I would have had to create that space through breathing techniques, centering techniques, other types of ways to really make certain that space was elongated enough for me to choose. Next slide. So I would ask you now, each one of you, to set an intention. What is one habit that is maybe not serving you as well right now, or others? What is a habit you could create instead of the overused strength, in order for us to really think about how you could shape a new behavior, perhaps develop a new practice, until that behavior becomes second nature and, quite frankly, becomes who you are. So let's just take another moment. And I know there'll be more reflection that needs to happen. Obviously, we have an hour here together, but it begins you on a journey. And so just for a moment, reflect and set at least a little small micro intention. What new habit might you create? I'll give you about a minute. And while you're finishing up, I'd like to recite a small Chinese proverb for your reflection. Watch your thoughts. They become words. Watch your words. They become actions. Watch your actions. They become habits. Watch your habits. they become your character. And watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we talked a little bit about self-awareness, and now I want to bring in the resilience piece, because I think that they really work well together. What is resilience? Resilience is the ability to withstand, recover, and bounce back amidst stress, chaos, and ever-changing circumstances. Wouldn't you say we're there today? I mean, it doesn't get more chaotic, right? More ambiguous. Resilient people don't dwell on failure. And someone said that earlier. They learn from their mistakes. They acknowledge the situation, they learn from their mistakes, and they move forward. So if I were to describe sort of like this forceful move, you've got to go forward kind of thing, as opposed to taking that time to create the space, breathe, recover in order to pivot and bounce back. There's a difference. And the first one is more exhausting. And you probably do need a week to recover. So let's get into the resilience piece, Denora. Next slide. So there's a couple of things that I thought of in particular with this particular program and this Dreamcatcher project. You have a network that's built in. And each of you have strengths and opportunities for growth. And you can lean on one another. And you can reflect, you can get connected, you can build strong relationships. You can hold each other accountable around certain intentions or habits. So I encourage you to think about how you really bring this Dreamcatcher program into maybe a different level of manifestation. Another one is to just be grateful every day we wake up and that we're breathing, and make every day meaningful. Do something, even if it's one small thing, that gives you a sense of purpose and accomplishment every day, just for you. And set goals to help you look toward the future with meaning. So a lot of times we're very busy and we don't look up and look out at what's needed around us. And so how might we do this in a new way? And then, as we spoke earlier, think of how you've coped with hardships in the past. What were the skills and strategies that helped you through those times? You might even be able to resort to those past experiences in a journal to help you identify positive and negative behavior patterns that could guide your future behavior. Next slide. Remain positive and hopeful. We cannot change the past. We can only look forward to the future. We can be in this present moment and accept that with every new change, that we are there with it and in relationship with it. So how can we be positive and hopeful even amidst coronavirus? Now this next one I should have put a big star next to, highlighted it in yellow, because and women in particular, but I would say those that are in service of, myself included, self-care is huge. If we can find a way to tend to our own needs and feelings, and maybe in these pandemic times, we don't have the luxury of a hobby per se, but is there a way that you can begin to apply some relaxation techniques, meditation, guided imagery, deep breathing, prayer, spirituality, whatever resonates for you, so that you can be resilient and not be forcing things till the bitter end. to take that break, to create that space. And finally, don't ignore your problems. Instead, figure out what needs to be done. Make a plan. Take an action. Although it can take time to recover from a major setback, just as we are all in now, to believe that your situation could improve if you work at it every day is an important mindset. And lastly, you do not need to do this alone. Reach out for help if you need it. Next slide. So I'm going to just stop here and open up the floor, but I want to end with this beautiful quote that I found. And Dr. Richard Hanson is a big deal in positive psychology. I've taken a couple of his courses and he's really been helpful to me. Be your whole self. It's your whole self that you can trust. This day, this week, this life, see what happens when you bet on yourself. What happens when you let yourself fall backward into your own arms, trusting that they will catch you? So I'd like to open up now with discussion, any questions and answers, anything that I can lend insight, even a discussion, challenge each other, anything you want to, what's coming up for you right now in this moment?
I have a question.
Please.
Well, one of the things that I think being Latina, for me, growing up, is everything is a challenge, and especially as a woman. And I grew up like as an angry teenager, and anger was like a force for me to push me forward, like, because everything was a challenge for me. I have to work harder. Everything has to be double work for me. So that anger was my fuel to continue to push me to be better, to be more resilient in a way. But I feel like that really helped me when I was younger, but now it's getting in the way for me. It's getting in the way because it's like you mentioned, it's not helping me anymore. Being angry is not a tool for me or a fuel. It's just actually like it's affecting a lot of things in my relationship, my family, even sometimes my work, that I can get frustrated really easily. How can I funnel that or kind of like work with that? Because I really don't know how.
It's a great question. What I would say is, so this is a perfect example of what got you here doesn't get you there. Mm-hmm. The fact that you know that, the fact that there's something going on, there's an inflection point going on right now that is the truth, it is speaking the truth within you, is already a big deal that you can acknowledge it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
No, seriously. And that's really where I start coaching leaders, is right at that inflection point where they're struggling. It's not working for them. And the harder they try, the less effective they are in all aspects of their life. So there are lots of things I could offer. I will say, and I didn't put a big bibliography of resources, I could follow up with that. But I would say that if you, and by the way, Dinora, it doesn't mean that anger couldn't serve you either, right? Maybe not the same way as before. So this is my, I'll show it to you. Oh, that's my bell. So this is it, I can see it. But think creating that space and choosing where you want to be on this dial. Choose your setting. Mm-hmm. Now, that's easy to think about, but to bring it into your inner self and to be able to work on those inner practices is not so easy. So I have a couple of practices, and if people are curious, I could even do one or two right now, and you could just go through it with me and just get a sense, and you could take them into your future, and they don't take too long. Would people be willing to experiment with me? Yes?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Because all right, All right, the first one would be, if you can, and I know, Ray, you're in your car, but if you can, just sit up straight and just feel your body in the chair. If you're comfortable, lower your eyes, maybe even close them. And feel your feet on the ground. Feel them as if there were roots growing out of the bottom of your feet, like a tree trunk. And just breathe. And experience that felt sense of groundedness. And as you breathe, sit up straight, maybe even a little straighter. And just feel that this is your space. This is your dignity. And you enter into this space. You, along with each one of us in this community. And now just experiment with your width for a moment. If you can, just maybe even put your arms out to the side and go, yep, all this is my container, my width. This is all part of me stepping into my greatness. And breathe. And let's not forget our depth. In my coach training, we call it our dinosaur tail. So imagine you have a dinosaur tail that's very long, and it's filled with every experience, every piece of knowledge, every piece of education, everything in your life up until this very moment. These are the resources that never leave you. They are there, and you can call upon them at any time. And to remember that you are enough right now in your sufficiency. And breathe. And go back and revisit the grounding of your feet, the length of your spine and your dignity, your width, your depth. And now just move a little forward as if you're peering into the future. And then just come back to center. This is the present moment. This moment will never, ever be recreated again. Thank you.
That was great.
So Dinora, did that help with calm you?
Yeah.
So here's another one, even shorter. And they call it ratio breathing. So if you are operating in the red zone and you need to, we call it self-regulation. There is actually a word for it. This creating the space, that's no easy task, and this takes practice. But if you were to, 20 times a day you could do this. You could be in a meeting and we breathe, right, all the time. And you could be in a meeting and you could go, I'm triggered. Somebody just really made me angry, or I'm triggered, or that really made me angry. And you could just pause, breathe, create the space. So this is a trick. If you're in the red zone or yellow zone, and it should bring you into the green zone, which is the calm space that we ideally should always operate in. And of course, that's hilarious because we're getting triggered 50 million times a day. But that's the goal. The Dalai Lama was asked once, this is one of my favorite questions that was asked of him, why don't you ever get angry? You know what his answer was? I get angry all the time. I just know how to recenter quickly.
Wow.
That's the practice, right? So I love that because when I get triggered and I'm trying to create the space, I just go, breathe, Dalai Lama. So, no kidding. So, this is a self-regulation exercise. It's called breathing ratio. And when you're trying to down-regulate, you're breathing in. So I'll do it with you. Ready? So count to 4 and breathe in through your nose. And when you get to 4, breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe in 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, if you did that for just a minute, and you did that 20 times a day, which we have to breathe anyway, so why not? Right?
Yeah.
If you need to upregulate, then you might want to breathe in on the 6 count and then release on the 4 count.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, and there are people who are just in crisis mode, they've hit the wall and they have nothing left, they're depleted, and they may really need to upregulate. But usually I'm working with people that are overwhelmed, that are triggered, that are frustrated, that are angry, fill in the blank. And I just suggest that there's another way of being. So I'm going to just pause there. Any other questions?
I have a question. Oh, no, it's just a comment. I really like your session. It was very, very good. Thank you for being a speaker today. I have 2 kids, 5 and 7. There is a lot of bullying in some of the schools. So my question or my comment out there is why they don't teach self-awareness in the schools? Because I think if these will be taught in schools and from young age, we will have less problems in communicating to each other, we as a human beings.
I couldn't agree with you more, and you should start a school. No, I'm kidding. But what I am saying is that we have an opportunity to really role model, especially parents. I'm a grandmother of 3 grandkids, and I see my kids in New York and Seattle, and they're managing children and working from home, and it's not easy. So I don't say this is easy, but I will tell you what I am seeing starting to happen in schools is yoga and breathing. And I just go, yes, there's an opportunity to actually start to make this be a habit in the children. And so my feedback for you all and my challenge might be, how could you start bringing that into your homes, into your work? I know plenty of leaders, by the way, who start their sessions with a mood check, just like we did today. And, oh, that's too vulnerable. No, we're human beings, for goodness sake, and we have troubles, we have challenges, or we're happy, or whatever we are. And to know that is a really important piece of who we are. And to really understand, are they operating in what zone? The green zone, the red zone? How can we be of support to one another? And so here's my invitation, is to start, if the schools aren't doing it, can you? There's plenty of YouTubes out there for children yoga, for example. I've looked at them for my grandkids, and my grandkids got little yoga mats for Christmas. They were 3 and 2. So it's not too soon to start. And I do think that that could make a big difference in our world if we all could just communicate in that way, to hold the space, to not respond immediately, to receive, to listen actively and in our hearts. I think that could be tremendous, but it starts with each of us. So I have one more request before I turn this over to Dinora. Can we have a mood check on your way out? What are you feeling right now? Mood check. Put it in chat. Beautiful. Centered, happy, empowered, validated. I love that. Accomplished, calm, yay. Yay, less anxious, yay. So then I did my job with you in partnership, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Ray, thank you for opening this session up. I think it was a good learning. I think that we were with one another. I think we took clarity into our hearts and minds, and I think.
Thank you, Joy. This was wonderful, and thank you for teaching me how to calm myself. It's going to be very helpful for me in my personal life and my professional life. And in order to advance as a human being, I think it's important to have those tools and learn from people like you. And I want to give it up to you, Ray. I know that you have a lot of experience, especially with motivational speaking and interviewing and the historical trauma what's happening right now in our communities. How can you give us some advice what to do with our kids when we are going through this pandemic and getting so anxious and afraid, to be honest with you?
I wanted to say that I'm really happy that I had a chance to join you today and experience validation on centering. Some people call it mindfulness, but centering is really what it's about, and especially at these times when we are all being traumatized daily, and so for me, I center a lot, and breathing is a real key way of doing it, and I pay more attention to my water intake. I pay more attention to my surroundings. I do a lot of walking on Navajo land. I'm blessed to have a lot of open country where nobody lives for miles and miles. I do hikes, and when I'm feeling really pressured, and we're all in this helping work, ladies, and the work that we do to help our families and our extended families, our people and friends. We're expected to be that centering person oftentimes, and we have to step away from that. Sometimes be alone and do the breathing, center ourselves and get back into it. And that's how we heal ourselves each day, and so that we can keep moving ahead for what we're here to do, and which is to help people. And I make it really clear with people I work with that I'm in this business to save lives. And in my business to save lives, I do everything I can to keep myself as centered as possible. I do ceremonies, I do prayer, I do walks, and I do a lot of breathing, being conscious to that. So thank you for the opportunity, and bless all of you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody to being here. Any other questions that you might have? I see Deborah, you're nodding. Do you have any questions? How are you feeling right now after the session?
I'm feeling good. With this new job position I have, I've been learning for the last 2 years about motivational interviewing and being able to bridge that connection with people, not only adults, but children, and being able to use those techniques for myself and being able to set those goals and the things that I like to change. I know that I have to make that commitment. It comes from me. No one else can, tell me to do it. If you try to tell somebody, they're not going to do it. So being able to work with others and in that realm, as far as MI, and I'm learning a lot. And so with this, positive comment I made, with the slowdown and shutdown of a lot of the activities I used to do, I recentered and had to, make some adjustments with my life and lifestyle as far as being at home and doing stuff at home as opposed to being out and doing all kinds of activities and just really busy in the community and stuff. So recentering, refocus, and just got news that my mom, the state of New Mexico, is letting the hairdressers open their shops. So my mom's shop today. So got some great news. But other than that, thank you. And all the information that was shared and the ideas, and that's helping me put that in my tool bag. My new tail I had to grow.
Yes, grow the tails, everyone. Grow the tails.
I have like 3 tails instead of 1 tail.
Absolutely. And if I just could invite everyone, please, to use each other as that support and accountability. And if you have stayed in attention and you can just do a micro thing, it doesn't have to be this big next step, just a micro next step. And one step after another is how you build the mastery. So thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Joy. Well,
you.
I want to thank you, everybody, for being here today. We're going to close the session now, and I want to invite you for next week. We're going to continue with these webinars, and have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.